Hi guys, how you doing? Happy New Year. It's been a little while since I've made a video over the Christmas period for a couple of reasons. Partly because I've been away with the family. We went to stay with my mother, who lives a long way away, and took the hordes of children with us. But also because I've had some complications, shall we say, from my sinus surgery. Effectively, the operation site, so inside my sinuses, got infected, and I've been struggling to get on top of that for some time now. I'm on my 5th course of antibiotics now, and this is a month-long course that I'm a week and a bit into. So hopefully that will knock it on the head, but that's made life a little bit tricky. I won't go into too much detail, but effectively I've been rinsing pus from my nose, which is a delight. But anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about that. What I'd like to talk to you about is one of the many things that's happened over the Christmas break that's worthy of comment. There have been a few, and I'm going to make videos about more than just the subject. But I want to talk a little bit about world of sport. On New Year's Eve, so New Year's Eve 2016, for the first time in 30 years, World of Sport, which is a UK television company, put on a live, obviously it wasn't live, it was filmed live and then shown, but it put on wrestling. Now, as a child, I used to adore the wrestling. Saturday afternoons, I'd settle down in front of the television and watch people like Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, Fit Finlay, Marty Jones, people like these, absolute legends, Johnny Saint, Mal Saunders, Johnny Kincaid, all these people, and I'd watch them wrestle. And I absolutely adored it. My personal hero was Big Daddy. I grew up in Halifax, a town up in Yorkshire, where Big Daddy was from. Shirley Crabtree, who I'm led to believe was originally trained by George Hackenschmidt. By the time Big Daddy was at his prime, his most popular, he wasn't really doing much in the way of wrestling. But a friend of mine who knew him says that he was pretty handy. So he was my hero, and so everybody that was associated with him was kind of also a hero of mine. So one of the people very specifically that was his tag team partner on a number of occasions was a guy called Marty Jones. Marty was comparatively quite a small guy. He weighed in as a light heavyweight usually, whereas Big Daddy was a super heavyweight. Big Daddy was a big man, and he was wrestling against people like Giant Haystacks, who was even bigger than Big Daddy. So by the standards of those guys, Marty Jones was quite small, quite agile, and developed a style of wrestling that was a little bit more flamboyant and a little bit more aerial, and effectively him and a couple of other people created this new style of wrestling. It didn't last very long in the UK. The World of Sport eventually died off. It lost its appeal, and professional wrestling effectively moved to either Japan or to America. We're all familiar with the WWF that became WWE, still going strong, and lots of other American promotions, but there's quite a lot goes on in Japan as well. Marty Jones moved over to Japan, as did people like Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson. And I was really lucky to meet Marty while I was training with Billy Robinson. Billy Robinson had come over to the UK, I think it was his second official scientific wrestling camp, but his third visit to the UK. I'd trained with him the year before, and I was training with him again this year, and an association of wrestlers from the UK effectively decided to award him a Lifetime Achievement Award. So what happened is a guy called Andy Crittenden got involved with them and helped organise this, and put on what was effectively an audience with Billy Robinson. So we all rocked up to this working men's club on the outskirts of Leeds, and Billy was there, and all of us that were on the wrestling camp turned up, and slowly but surely this working men's club filled up with all these people who had absolutely worshipped as a child. And it was quite something, and I got to meet Marty, and Marty and I have kind of become friends ever since. I've persuaded him to come down and do some coaching for us on a few occasions, because he lives up in Manchester. At the time he was a publican, he was running a pub and wasn't really doing anything to do with wrestling. Now I'm very pleased to say that he's literally today, as I film this, Marty Jones is hosting the first night of his own dedicated wrestling academy. He's done teaching for lots of other people, and he travels around, and he travelled with Johnny Saint for a while, putting on seminars and coaching classes and things. But today he opens Squared Circle in Manchester, Marty Jones's Wrestling Academy. So I hope it's going incredibly well. But anyway, I'm kind of waffling a little, I do apologise, it's probably the port. It's a fine ruby, by the way, if you're interested. But anyway, World of Sport was back on television, and it was quite interesting. Obviously, they've changed the way they want to do this. I personally think that's a bit of a shame. They're kind of following the American model now, where the whole evening is effectively scripted. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because these guys aren't actors, and there's a huge variety in their ability to follow a script and pull that off. You know, it's one thing to know some wrestling moves and to be able to sell them in the ring. It's another thing altogether to be able to play a role in a way that's both convincing and coherent across the whole evening. But anyway, that aside, there were some real highlights for me. Seeing some of these World of Sport legends, people like Marty Jones, my mate Marty, and some of the other guys that I'd met through Marty, Johnny Saint especially, who is an absolute lovely guy. If you ever get the chance to meet up with Johnny Saint, do. You won't regret it. He's a delight, absolute gentleman. I've never met anybody that's got a bad word to say about Johnny Saint. Incidentally, he's just flown over to America to help train wrestlers for the WWE. He's working with William Regal, who's one of the commissioners for the WWE. William Regal was trained as a wrestler by Marty Jones. It's all a bit incestuous, but you see basically how amazing these guys were. Marty Jones, if you weren't aware, is a 7-time world champion wrestler. And before he turned pro, he was a British amateur champion as well, so he knew what he was doing. He was trained by Billy Robinson, and so on and so on. So they were there, they were sitting in the front row, and we had some footage of them, some little interviews of them talking about how World of Sport Wrestling used to be. And then we had the wrestling. I'm not going to comment too much about it, because I enjoy pro wrestling. I enjoy it because it's quite spectacular, and clearly you can see, when you understand wrestling, you can see that its roots are in catch as catch can. But it isn't catch as catch can wrestling. This isn't catch wrestling that you're seeing. What you're seeing, in effect, is live stunt work to an entertaining script. And once you kind of get your head around that, it's quite enjoyable, to be honest. I like it. And there are some very good wrestlers who can actually do shoot wrestling, some catch wrestlers who can also work very effectively in the ring. And it was quite entertaining to see one of them appear in World of Sport. Now, one of the people who you may have heard of, if you follow wrestling, you may have heard of somebody called Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, who was a British wrestler who made the transition to the WWE and became a global superstar. And he married into the Hart family, and his son, Harry Smith, wrestles predominantly in Japan as Davey Boy Smith Jr. Now, there are a couple of things about Harry that you need to know. Firstly, he's massive. I got invited by Marty to a wrestling convention in London. He was coming down with some of his guys, and he said, "Come along, I'll get you a free ticket. You get in and meet some of the guys." and I did, had a fantastic time, and while I was there, Marty introduced me to Harry Smith. Marty was good friends with the Hart family, all of them, and some of them were there as well. Bret Hart was there, and Diana, and lots and lots of famous American wrestlers, as well as the World of Sport guys. But yeah, Harry was there, so I know that Harry Smith and I have a few mutual friends. So I introduced myself to him, and we had a bit of a chat, and it was kind of cool. He's a lovely guy, very big, not a small man. Don't make the mistake of thinking he isn't big. He's pretty huge. But the reason that Harry and I have these things in common is that he's also a catch wrestler as well as a pro wrestler. He's one of the few people that was certified as an assistant coach within the scientific wrestling program by Billy Robinson himself. And Harry trains with Josh Barnett, among other people. I happened to be wearing a t-shirt that had a silhouette of Billy Robinson in his prime on it, and Harry saw it and commented and said that he liked the t-shirt. Where did I get the t-shirt? Could he get one? Now, it was a t-shirt I'd made myself. So I said, well, I can make you one and send it to you, but you know, I mean, what size t-shirt do you wear? And he said, extra large. Now, at the time, I was carrying a bit of extra weight, and I was wearing an extra large too. So I said to Harry, well, let's just swap t-shirts. So we had this bizarre moment where I'm sitting in a giant convention hall, and Davey Boy Smith Jr. is stood behind his little desk where people are queuing up to meet him, and literally there are probably 150 people all waiting patiently in a queue to come along and meet him and get the programme signed and to shake their hand and get a photo taken with him. And he's holding this whole thing up while he strips his t-shirt off, and I strip my t-shirt off, trying not to feel completely inferior next to this absolutely massive, muscly man, and we swapped t-shirts. So it was a joy to see Harry Smith come running out of nowhere, completely unannounced, leap into the ring and start kicking ass. That was lovely. There are some other guys in the World of Sport thing, because I am talking about World of Sport ostensibly. There are a couple of other guys there that I thought were really good. El Ligero is doing the whole Mexican wrestling thing, and he does it well. He does a lot of aerial stuff, and he can fly. Very impressive to watch. There's a guy called Johnny Moss, who I know Marty's worked with a few times, and he comes across very well. He's a heel at the moment, but a very good one, and he can clearly wrestle too. So whether it'll happen again, I don't know. I certainly hope so, because there's some very talented wrestlers, and if we can get wrestling on as a regular thing, then maybe we can do away with this short-termism that we have in scripting at the moment, where effectively they try and make a superhero movie. And if you saw the night, you'll know what I mean, in that you've got somebody that manages to get through to the end and they're getting a bit of a kicking and they come back at the very end and they win the prize. Great. You know, that's fine if you're watching a cheesy martial arts film. It's a little bit disappointing in wrestling. What I really like in pro wrestling is where you're seeing wrestlers actually wrestle, and rivalries develop over time, and that's what guides the storyline, rather than some producers somewhere sitting down deciding what they want to happen. I think you get a much more convincing match in the ring, and you get a much more entertaining storyline. But, you know, maybe that's just me. I'd like to see some more technical wrestling from it, because that's what the English were famous for. That's why people like Billy Robinson and Marty Jones and William Regal have been so successful, because these guys could really wrestle. And that's one of the reasons that Harry Smith, Davey Boy Smith Jr., is doing so well and is so successful, because that guy can seriously wrestle. He's a proper catch wrestler that's doing pro, in much the same way that Josh Barnett does some pro, that Sakuraba does pro wrestling, that Shayna Baszler has moved across into pro and she's started to win some matches. So there's a real link between catch wrestling and pro wrestling, and I think that's what we ought to be focusing on. We should be trying to create professional wrestling that's entertaining and enjoyable to watch, that still maintains its roots within catch as catch can. Anyway, I won't go on about it anymore. Check it out. World of Sport's available online somewhere, I'm sure. I haven't got a link, so I won't stick one down below. But anyway, welcome back. Happy New Year. I hope 2017 is a fantastic year for you. I'm very much hoping it's going to be a fantastic year for me. I'm going to be, tonight, this very same night, I'm going to be recording my first video, which is exclusively for my Patreon supporters. So please check out my Patreon page, and I hopefully will see you there. And over the next week or two, I'll be releasing some more videos. So check out some of the old stuff, check out the stories of greatness, check out the fight breakdowns, and if there's anything you'd like to see me talk about, do let me know. Take care guys, see you soon.